A young couple suddenly goes missing in South Carolina. Police are searching everywhere for them. Out of nowhere, they get a ping from the cell phone belonging to the missing couple. Police obtain a search warrant for a private property in Spartanburg County. Shortly after arriving on the property, they find the missing woman alive and chained to the wall of a shipping container. The investigation launched shortly after led to the discovery of several buried bodies that were allegedly missing their feet. The most insane Amazon reviews of murder tools, and the arrest of an evil millionaire serial killer. This is the story of Todd Kohlhepp. Welcome back to Crime is Fun, ladies and gentlemen. I don't condone crime, but you have to admit it's kind of fun to listen to, and I have fun talking about it. There's something that first responders say: if you're not laughing, then you're gonna cry. This episode is gonna be a little different than the past couple in a sense that it's gonna be a little bit more serious. It's easy to joke about a guy in Australia sucking turtles, but kinda hard to joke about a guy killing several people, possibly cutting their feet off and burying them with a backhoe on his personal killing fields. I actually made a video about this one 8 years ago because it happened in the same place that I used to police. That'd be Spartanburg, South Carolina. Since then, a whole lot more crazy stuff has been released about the investigation, so I thought it would be interesting to touch on the case again. Prepare yourself for a roller coaster of a story about serial killer Todd Kohlhepp. Welcome to the 5th episode of Crime is Fun. I just wanted to stop real quick before we get into Todd Kohlhepp and thank you all for the 50,000 subscribers. You guys are freaking awesome, and I hope to be doing these every week forever. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, hit that notification bell. Or you can watch this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Last week when I did that Special Forces episode, I slowed my voice down a little bit because people said I was going too fast. Because I slowed down a little bit, I guess it appeared that I was intoxicated and everyone was asking me how much I had been drinking. So I'm going to try to keep it at a friendly pace so I don't seem like an alcoholic. So Todd Kohlhepp. On March 7th, 1971, Todd Christopher Sampsell was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. His parents divorced when he's just 2 years old. Todd's mom gets custody and quickly remarries. Later, psychological reports describe the relationship with his stepfather as, quote, unhealthy. Seeing as how he raped, murdered, and lied his way through life, I'm going to guess the stepfather was probably abusive. The red flags start early, like nursery school level early. His caregivers start noticing that he's super aggressive toward other kids. He does things like destroy their toys and physically harm them. He also showed an interest in sexual content at an incredibly young age. It got so bad that at 9 years old he started counseling for this behavior. Counselors described Todd as explosive. At around 11 years old, Todd gets evaluated by Spartanburg School District 3 after constantly acting out in class and getting in trouble. He's disruptive and still very aggressive towards the other kids. He's destroying their projects and toys, and one report notes he once locked a boy in a dog cage and rolled him around the yard like it was a twisted game. Okay, to be fair, I definitely did stuff like that to my little brother. Another time, he stabbed a girl in the leg with something because she wouldn't give him what he wanted. Okay, to be fair, I definitely never stabbed my little brother. Todd's not a nice kid. Neighbors and family describe him as impossible to control. He even threatened to kill his own mother at one point. One time, he destroyed the new family remodeled bathroom with a hammer in a fit of rage. He goes so far as to shred his own new clothes. He even gets kicked out of the Boy Scouts for being too disruptive. Do you know how hard it is to get kicked out of the Boy Scouts? Young Todd definitely wanted to live with his biological father, who he hadn't seen in 8 years. By age 12, his mother and stepfather separate and he's shipped off to Arizona to live with his dad. That's when he takes the last name Kohlhepp. He was constantly bouncing between mom and dad, so he never really had a stable family life. What's that one thing people say and always say, oh yeah, that kid's gonna grow up to be a serial killer? Yep, he was hurting animals too. For no reason, Todd started shooting the neighbor's dog with a BB gun. One day, he decides that he wants a different pet, so he pours bleach into the fish tank to kill his goldfish. Thank God he never got that new pet. he probably didn't get that new pet because he was admitted to a mental health facility in Georgia for a couple of months. His father put him up in a psychiatric hospital because he still literally just couldn't get along with other children. His father later told police that the only emotion Todd ever showed was anger and madness. In his teens, he collects guns, learns how to blow things up, and how to make bombs. Turns out he may have also owned a certain cookbook when he was a teenager, like I did and a lot of us did. Why his father allowed him to do this is beyond my understanding, though. Like, seriously, my little rascal just loves beating up his peers and killing animals. I should let him have access to firearms. Nothing bad could happen. Court documents from a brutal crime he committed in 1986 paint a picture of a kid who feels the world owes him something. He has an above-average IQ at 118, but evaluators call him behaviorally and emotionally dangerous and likely could not be rehabilitated. A judge notes he's very bright and should be advanced academically, but also a future menace. Boy, was that judge right. One early evaluation flags borderline personality disorder traits. This is a textbook future serial killer starter pack stuff. He's got an unstable home, abuses animals, has a sexual preoccupation at a young age, explosive rage as the dominant emotion, and obsession with weapons. I mean, the system flags him repeatedly but keeps letting him slide forward. I mentioned a brutal crime that took place in the 80s, November 25th, 1986. 15-year-old Colehep is living with his dad in Tempe, Arizona. Dad is out of town at the time. Yeah, I don't think anything good can come from an unsupervised psychotic teenager. Todd grabs his father's .22 caliber revolver and starts scoping out a victim. He targets his 14-year-old neighbor, Christy Granado, who lives just 3 houses away. Todd walks up to her, points the revolver at her head, and forces her to walk back with him to his house. He ties her up, tapes her mouth shut, and assaults her. Afterwards, he walks her home and threatens to kill her entire family if she tells anyone. Of course, she tells everyone, and Todd is arrested immediately. He's charged with kidnapping, rape, and committing a dangerous crime against children. In a plea deal, he pleads guilty to kidnapping and the other charges are dropped. Todd is then sentenced to 15 years in prison and registers as a grape offender. He's evil, but he's not stupid, so in prison he earns a bachelor's degree in computer science from Central Arizona College. Early prison records show some violent write-ups like fighting other inmates, but after age 20 he cleans up his act on paper. He serves 14 years and is released in August 2001 at 30 years old. The system basically says, good behavior, you're rehabilitated. Well, spoiler alert, he abso-freaking-lutely was not rehabilitated. After his release, Todd moves to South Carolina where his mom lives. He works as a graphic designer in Spartanburg from early 2002 to late 2003. He takes classes at Greenville Tech and later the University of South Carolina Upstate, graduating in 2008 with a BS in Business Administration and Marketing. On June 30th, 2006, he applies for a real estate license and lies about his felony conviction. He gets the license anyway. Todd builds a small firm with about a dozen agents and becomes a top-selling agent in the Spartanburg and Greenville region. I was a realtor during that time in the same city, so I probably ran into him a couple times. In May 2014, he buys nearly 100 acres in Woodruff, South Carolina for a little over $300,000 and spends another $80,000 on heavy fencing to make it his private little sanctuary. A pretty fucked up sanctuary. By this time, he owns a private pilot license and owns a couple of more properties around the United States. You can probably already tell from the title, he's a freaking serial killer. So I wonder if he got the idea of having a private pilot license from Robert Hansen, better known as the Butcher Baker. Just like Todd, Hansen on the surface seemed like a mild-mannered small business owner. Also just like Todd, when he was younger, he enjoyed kidnapping and assaulting women. From 1972 to 1983, Hansen would lure women back to his home, drug them, and assault them. Afterwards, he would load them onto his private plane and fly them up to his property in the remote Alaskan wilderness. Upon arrival, he would release the kidnapped lady into the dense forest and hunt them like a deer with a rifle and a knife. That's a whole nother episode of Crime is Fun. Let's get back to Todd. On the surface, he looked successful. Dude was very outgoing, very professional, and very business savvy. Some people thought, though, he was a little off. Customers describe him as extremely outgoing, but he was quick to talk about firearms and slip in sexual innuendo. Oh, I don't think those employees would have liked my other podcast unsubscribed then. One banker who worked with him says Todd watched adult videos at the office. Yeah, I'd say that's a little bit too much. Todd's double life is in full swing. He's a successful real estate agent flipping houses, flying planes, carrying guns, all while still a felon on the sex offender registry. One of the crazier things he was doing during the time before being caught was leaving Amazon reviews for items that he was using to hurt and keep other human beings captive on his property. One review for a forward grip for an AR-15 stated, "It's blacker than my soul and priced right." A review on a foldable military-style portable shovel stated, "Keep in your car for when you have to hide the bodies and you left the full-size shovel at home. Does not come with a midget, which would have been nice." One on a Husqvarna chainsaw states, "Works well, but it's hard to get the neighbor to stand still while you chase him with it." A review on an SOG fixed blade knife states, "Haven't stabbed anyone yet, but I am keeping the dream alive, and when I do, it will be a quality tool like this." A review on a high security master padlock states, "Solid lock. Have 5 on a shipping container. Won't stop them, but sure will slow them down till they are too old to care." Another master lock review states, "Works great. Also, if someone talks back, go old school on them by putting this in a sock and beating them. They will not appreciate the hardened steel like you do. Works great on shipping containers." Todd is leaving all these crazy reviews on this stuff during this time because obviously he's up to some really nefarious, evil stuff. Around 2015, he had a habit of going into a specific Waffle House in Roebuck, South Carolina, and ordering the same thing. That Waffle House was beside my house, and I ate there all the time on the way to my shift as a police officer. Again, I probably ran into Todd. The waitresses knew him, heck, the whole staff knew him. It wasn't just because he was there every day though, it was because he had a habit of creeping on Waffle House waitresses. This is a guy who watches adult videos in his real estate office, so you already know he's the type of guy to hit on women at the local Waffle House. He would ask them to come home with him and give them big tips. One waitress in particular caught his eye. That was Megan Lee McCraw Coxy. Megan and her husband Johnny had been struggling financially for a while. She had a couple run-ins with the law, including a child neglect charge from her baby testing positive for heroin in December of 2015. Around the same time their baby somehow ended up with drugs in its system, the couple is panhandling all over busy intersections in Spartanburg. There's a good chance that I probably ran them off a couple times because panhandling was illegal in city limits. Todd had allegedly spotted them panhandling and offered cash work for odd jobs on his properties. Megan told her mom that a real estate agent had hired her to clean homes and had also hired her husband Johnny to do work on his property. Just little things like clearing brush, cleaning up his buildings, and simple manual labor. Well, the couple suddenly goes missing. No one knows what happens to them until Todd is called about a year later in November of 2016. A combination of arrest warrants, coroner reports, and Todd's confession paint a grisly picture. On December 19, 2015, the couple arrived at Todd's property to do some work he had promised them. According to Todd, Johnny pulls a knife and tries to rob him, so Todd shot him in the chest 2 times. After shooting Johnny, he tackles Megan, handcuffs her, and shackles her legs. If this was self-defense like Todd tried to say, he probably wouldn't have locked her in a shipping container for nearly a week. Megan sat helpless in the shipping container for days. Todd actually tried to cut a deal with her at first. He told her he'd set up a $10,000 trust for her infant daughter and drive her to be with her family in Tennessee if she'd just forget the whole thing. Let bygones be bygones about, me shooting your husband in the chest. Of course, just to get the hell out of there, she agreed to his terms. On or around Christmas Day, Todd opened up the shipping container Megan had been chained up to. Megan told herself that this hell is finally over. She was unchained and walking toward Todd's car. Freedom at last. Todd shoots her in the back of the head, instantly killing her. According to him in later interviews, he really was going to let her go, but at the last second, he started thinking about the possibility of being pulled over by police on the way to Tennessee. He thought about her freaking out and telling police about the murder and kidnapping. The crazy bastard didn't want to risk any of that, so the next best option to him was a bullet in her brain. Todd buried the couple on his property near the shipping container prison. To me, they kind of sound like a typical target of a serial killer. You have a couple who is addicted to heroin and are basically vagrants begging for money. People like that are typically known for being sketchy and skipping town. It's like how a lot of serial killers target prostitutes, knowing the majority of the time no one will miss them for a while or even at all. There have been more than a few serial killers who have said that they also target sex workers or even drug addicts because they don't see police looking for them as hard as they would an upstanding citizen. In this situation though, Megan's mom was wondering where her daughter was, so she reported her missing on December 22nd, just 3 days before Todd executed her. After murdering the couple, I'm guessing he thought, damn, that was pretty easy, because it wasn't long before he was shopping around for more victims. Using Facebook, Todd found a woman named Kayla Brown. He offered her a job cleaning his real estate properties. Eventually, he offered her and her boyfriend the same type of work that he had offered the last victims, cleaning up around his large property. They needed the cash, so they agreed to help the friendly real estate agent. What's the worst that could happen, they thought. On August 31st, 2016, 30-year-old Kayla Brown and her boyfriend, 32-year-old Charlie Carver, head over to Todd's property. The couple starts clearing up some heavy overgrowth. At some point, Kayla and Chris bicker in front of Todd, just normal couple stuff. Then, as Kayla later recounted on the Dr. Phil show, "We were standing there and I look up. He walked out and he had the gun in his hand and he pretty much just shot Charlie before he even made it completely out of the door. Todd put 3 shots into Charlie's chest. Kayla watches her boyfriend crumple right in front of her. She said Todd stays completely calm about having just killed Charlie. Charlie's body gets wrapped in a blue tarp, tossed in the tractor bucket, and buried nearby. Kayla never sees his body again after the shooting." Real quick before we get into Kayla's fate, let me tell you what this crazy bastard did with Charlie's phone. A couple of weeks after he was killed, Todd started posting on Charlie's Facebook. Yeah, he killed Charlie and kept updating his status. His Facebook updates claimed he and Kayla were married, buying a house, and expecting a daughter. The page also shared posts about digging holes, sword violence, and the final verse of the Eagles Hotel California. In early October, someone posing as Carver uploaded and deleted an old photo of the couple, captioned, "We are fine." That's kind of a red flag. We are fine. Hi, family and friends, you haven't seen us for weeks, but we are fine. When friends reached out on the page, Todd sometimes posed as Charlie Carver and other times implied they were Carver's estranged wife. One response Todd wrote read, "Well, I would keep my nose clean out of it. How do you know my hubby?" Bro couldn't even keep his story straight to the dude he just shot. All right, back to Kayla. Todd forces Kayla to the ground after shooting Charlie, handcuffs her wrists behind her back, cuffs her ankles, and shoves a ball gag in her mouth. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. He had the restraints ready to take her into captivity. Todd drags her to the 30-foot-long metal shipping container he had prepped as his personal dungeon. This is the same one that he put the last girl in before he executed her. Inside of the Connex box, it was pitch black except for what light Todd brought. There are shelves lined with dried food rations and enough water bottles to sustain someone for months. There were no windows or real ventilation. It was a regular old Connex box and some custom Todd modifications. He had already welded chain anchors to the metal walls of the container. Kinda seems like he had been planning this for a while. Todd chains her to the wall immediately. He locks one heavy chain around her neck and secured to the wall with only about 3 feet of slack. He puts another chain on her ankles so that she can't run. Kayla can barely move. She can barely sit up fully without the chain tightening around her neck. Within minutes, he grapes her for the first time. That becomes the daily schedule for the next 65 days. She's assaulted twice a day, morning and night, every single day for over 2 months. Kayla described Todd as methodical and calm even during the assaults, like it was just part of his daily routine. Life in the container is sensory deprivation hell for the poor girl. South Carolina's summer heat turns the metal box into an oven. Like I said, there was no light unless Todd opens the door and brings a small lantern. There was no proper bathroom facilities beyond what he would allow. She's completely dependent on him for minimal food and water. The neck chains never come off. When he rarely moves her, he adds more restraints first. She stays clothed but filthy, humiliated, and terrified. Todd visits her daily though and talks a lot. He brags to Kayla that he's good at killing people. He hints his victim count is multiplication, not addition. She later said in his stories his body count is nearly 100 in some versions, with bodies out of state and even out of the country thanks to his pilot's license. Like I was saying earlier. He shows her the fresh grave of Johnny and Megan Coxy. He tells Kayla, "See those? That's what happens if you try to run from me." The dude eventually develops a full-blown weird infatuation for her. He tells Kayla she is his property now. He says he chose her because she is beautiful and smart, and explains Stockholm Syndrome to her in detail and says it will eventually kick in, saying we would be happy together. He has a long-term plan to keep her chained up until he trusts her more, then build a soundproof room on the property, eventually let her walk freely around the 95 acres. He says one day when he gets old and sick, he'll even let her go and give her some money. In Kayla's own words from the Dr. Phil show, he seemed infatuated. I don't think he wanted to kill me, he wanted to keep me. He let me know that I was his property and that I'd never go anywhere and that he chose me. Shit, that's weird. Kayla plays the long game to survive. She keeps telling herself, as long as I served my purpose, I was safe. She stays quiet, compliant, doesn't fight or scream when he's not there, which really wouldn't help because the property is pretty damn isolated. She conserves energy, prays often, and mentally catalogs every word he says. These details she will later spit out to rescuers in the first moment of freedom. Todd occasionally brings small comforts like a blanket, a lantern, some extra food, but the chains and the assaults never stop. Kayla goes through 2 months and 5 days of that nightmare. She hears occasional sounds outside, mostly just Todd working on the property, but mostly silence and her own thoughts. Kayla endures. On November 3rd, 2016, Spartanburg Sheriff Department investigators finally connect some dots on the missing couple. The cell phone pings from victims' phones later place Kayla near Todd's Woodruff property in the days after August 31st. Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office gets a search warrant and rolls in with a large team. The deputies start clearing brush and checking structures. Inside a particular shipping container, they hear a frantic metal banging. Officers approach carefully with their guns drawn. They cut through the padlock and pry open the door. The released body cam footage captures this moment. Kayla's sitting on the floor and still fully chained by the neck to the wall with that short 3-foot slack. She looks exhausted but remarkably composed. An officer asks if she knows where her buddy is. Her voice is quiet and steady with no hysteria. She answers instantly.
Charlie?
Yes.
He shot him.
Who did? She spills the beans. She says Todd Colehep shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest, wrapped him in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of the tractor, locked me down. I've never seen him again. He says he's dead and buried. He says there are several bodies dead and buried out here. In under 30 seconds of freedom, she has already named the killer by full name, described the murder, the body disposal method, and hinted at more graves on the property. Officers use bolt cutters to remove the neck chain. She tells them calmly, my neck's attached to the wall up here. The medics then rush in. She's dehydrated, bruised, and traumatized, but alive and talking. Kayla had heard the search team outside and started slamming whatever she could reach against the metal walls. She knew it was her one shot at rescue, and she took it, and it worked. At the hospital, Kayla keeps spilling details. She identifies photos of the Coxy couple and confirms the graves Todd had shown her. Then she drops the biggest bombshell yet. Todd had casually confessed details of the 2003 Superbike Motorsports quadruple homicide tour while she was chained up. She gives enough specifics that investigators finally have the link that they've needed for 13 years. Ah yeah, the Superbike murders, or if you watch my podcast, unsubscribe, the Booperbike murders. Let me explain that real quick. It's a quiet Thursday afternoon, November 6, 2003. Chesney, South Carolina. It's a small business called Superbike Motorsports, your typical motorcycle dealership used by all the locals for bike repairs and sales. Inside, you've got 4 people going about their day like it's just another Thursday. 30-year-old Scott Ponder, who is the owner. Scott is a married man and his wife is pregnant with their son. He's the guy who built this place from the ground up. Number 2, Scott's mom, 52-year-old Beverly Guy, is handling the books in the showroom. 3, we got 29-year-old Brian Lucas, who is the service manager and one of Scott's best friends. And lastly, number 4, there's 26-year-old small engine mechanic Chris Sherbert, who's working on a black Suzuki in the back. It's business as usual. Then at around 2:45 in the afternoon, a customer walks in the front door looking for some help with his motorcycle. The customer doesn't get that help, he just finds 4 bodies. 2 bodies inside the business, 2 more outside in the parking lot, and there's blood everywhere. There's also a mix of 18 brass and nickel-plated 9mm shell casings. Whoever killed the 4 Superbike employees didn't take money, parts, or even a motorcycle. According to later reports, they had come for revenge, and that revenge had allegedly been simmering for months. We'll talk about why I say allegedly here in a minute. This case has gotten deeper and crazier every year since Todd chained up poor Kayla in the Connex box. According to reports and Todd's testimony, back in April 2003, he had walked into Superbike Motorsports and bought himself a blue and white Suzuki GSX R750. He had paid about $9 grand for it. Problem was, Todd wasn't exactly an experienced rider. He dropped the bike, scratched it up, and regretted the purchase immediately. Frustrated and embarrassed, he tried to bring it back to Superbike and traded in for a smaller 600cc bike or get his money back. Todd walked into the bike shop and told the employees what had happened. They allegedly roasted this goofball. They made jokes and laughed in his face. One employee comment that stuck with Todd was, "Is the second motorcycle going to get stolen too?" Because Todd had reported one of his first bikes stolen not long before and lost the deductible on the insurance claim. Todd felt humiliated and disrespected. Instead of shrugging it off like a normal human being, he let that grudge fester inside him for months. Fast forward to November 6, 2003, Todd walks in from the back of the shop like he owns the place, carrying a 9mm pistol. First, he finds Chris Sherbert working on that black Suzuki in the service area and shoots him in the head. Then he steps into the showroom and puts a couple of rounds into Beverly Guy, Scott's mom. Next, Todd shoots Brian Lucas near the main doorway. Finally, Scott Ponder runs into the parking lot and tries to call for help. His phone actually shows he dialed 333, which is his wife's speed dial, but Todd follows him right out in the parking lot and finishes the job. That's 4 people executed in under a minute. According to reports, some of them got forehead finishers from the killer for good measure. Todd later bragged in his confession, saying, "I cleared that building in under 30 seconds. There was no robbery or struggle, just pure ice-cold execution because 4 motorcycle shop employees had the audacity to laugh at him months earlier." The case goes stone cold for 13 years. There were over 750 leads followed by investigators. 27 guns were tested. Shell casings were even sent all the way to England for advanced fingerprint technology. America's Most Wanted runs a segment in 2012 with a $25,000 reward. The composite sketch of a possible suspect leads nowhere. Nothing hits and no one knows what the heck happened until Todd said he did it 13 years later. Back when I was researching this case nearly a decade ago, there were rumors the sheriff at the time was trying really hard to be reelected, so he agreed to help Todd avoid the death penalty if Todd admitted to being the bad guy in the Superbike cold case. As I said, that's not a statement, those were just rumors I heard. Back then, I did come across a very interesting article written by a woman named Pat Brown. Pat states she has a lengthy professional history in profiling cold cases for law enforcement. Her website says she's made thousands of TV appearances on every major news network, and she holds a master's degree in criminal justice from Boston University. According to her website, patbrownprofiling.com, she provides criminal profiling consultation, education, and training to law enforcement, media, attorneys, universities, corporations, and private individuals. She says in 2009 she was brought in by the Spartanburg County Sheriff Department to profile the Superbike murder case and saw every piece of evidence. A couple years later, Sheriff Chuck Wright held up a sketch and said, "I'm going to be bold enough to say this is my man right here." Pat saw this broadcast and was confused because there was zero physical evidence at that time. 2016 rolls around, Kayla is saved, Todd is arrested, and he tells investigators, "I killed all the people at Superbike." Pat's website states an investigator on the case tells the TV show 48 Hours that Todd said he shot each victim in the forehead. Again, Pat Brown, who said she was brought in to profile the case, thinks something is fishy because according to the autopsy, none of the victims were shot in the forehead. Pat wrote a couple of articles about having doubts that Todd is the real Superbike killer on her website. The opinions in the comments section of those articles vary, with some people saying Sheriff Chuck Wright is lying and some people saying Pat is lying. I don't know. I do know last year Sheriff Wright got into a little trouble and disappeared from the public eye for a bit. All my friends were giving me crap because they said he disappeared to come to Texas to shoot me for talking about the Superbike murders a while back. Which, that's cool, he didn't. According to the Department of Justice website, he's going to be in federal prison for a minute. Justice.gov states Charles Chuck Wright, 60 years old, the former sheriff of Spartanburg County, Amos Durham, 61, a former chaplain for the department, and Lawson B. Watson, 63 years old, a former employee, have pled guilty for their participation in a public corruption scheme that defrauded the county of public funds for years. You see, a lot of police and sheriff's departments have what's called a benevolence fund, which is managed by the department chaplain. The chaplain is kind of like a preacher. You can just talk to them about stress or how you feel after shooting someone. The Benevolence Fund is there to help deputies in times of need, like financial difficulties and traumatic line of duty events. According to court documents from October of 2025, the chaplain and Sheriff Wright were planning on siphoning money out of the fund. Reports say Sheriff Wright had also hired a buddy to help with the embezzlement and was paying him $200,000 a year of taxpayer money to do nothing. On top of trying to steal money from downtrodden sheriff's deputies and hiring his homie just to sit on his ass, Sheriff Wright had, quote, intentionally obtained 147 pills of oxycodone and hydrocodone by misrepresentation from an individual after representing that the pills would be turned in and destroyed as part of the Take Back narcotic disposal program administered by the Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office. In fact, Wright was obtaining the narcotics for his own personal use. Did Sheriff Wright do some shady illegal stuff during his time in office? According to the Department of Justice and his guilty plea, he absolutely did. Did he talk Todd Kohlhepp into admitting to the Superbike murders for a little boost right before elections? I have no idea. Some people say yes, some people say no. Let's get back to what happened after the Sheriff's Department found Kayla locked up in that shipping container. Todd's arrested the same day on the property. The search turns up Charlie's body and the Coxy's body. Todd was also in possession of dozens of firearms and suppressors. Dude was a registered felon sex offender who can't have a gun, so it turns out he got most of them through straw purchases, which is super freaking illegal. A straw purchase is when someone legally buys a gun, then gives it or sells it to someone who cannot buy a gun. Kinda like a felon who's a sex offender. One dummy named Dustin Lawson ended up catching 36 federal charges for buying Todd at least 12 guns and 6 suppressors over a couple-year period. 3 months after the rescue, Kayla sits down with Dr. Phil for her first public interview. She described the pitch black container, the exact short chain length, the ball gag, the immediate grape, the twice daily assaults, and Todd's eerily calm demeanor during everything. She talks about his twisted long-term romance delusions and how he explains Stockholm Syndrome like a lecture. He didn't want to kill me, he wanted to keep me. That's why I did what I had to do to survive. No matter what he did to me, he did not break me, he cannot destroy me, and I won. Old girl was brave and did great on Dr. Phil. So Todd's taken into custody November 2016. Over multiple interrogation sessions, which you can still find on YouTube, he confesses his crimes in great detail. He's calm, polite, and according to reports, gives specifics only the killer would know. He walks through the Superbike massacre shot by shot. He admits to killing the Coxys in late 2015 and Charlie Carver on August 31st, 2016. He hints at more victims and again says, yeah, there's more than 7. It's not an addition problem, it's a multiplication problem. Leaving the state and leaving the country. Thank you, private pilot license. Yeah, those are his words. Hell, I wouldn't doubt it. Why confess to murders that no one even knows about when you're trying not to get the death penalty? In May 2017, he pleads guilty to all 7 murders, plus the kidnapping and graping of Kayla Brown as part of a deal to avoid the death penalty. He received 7 consecutive life sentences with no parole, plus 60 years. Todd appears in court in an orange jumpsuit and simply says variations of "guilty, sir." Evaluators across his life flag high IQ paired with borderline personality disorder, explosive rage, and an inability to feel normal emotions beyond anger. There's childhood animal abuse, early sexual preoccupation, and unstable home life predicted this a long time ago. In prison letters, he brags about additional victims that were never fully confirmed by investigators. The 2019 investigation discovery series Serial Killer, Devil Unchained explores the possibilities. Todd remains a case study on how high intelligence and low empathy can hide in plain sight for years. He would have kept getting away with it if it wasn't for one survivor. That's the only reason Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and even the dude I was talking about hunting women in Alaska got caught. One person survived. After being Todd's prisoner and sharing her story on Dr. Phil, Kayla receives a $25,000 reward for the information that helped resolve the case, and she files civil suits against Todd's assets for damages. Her attorney originally asked for $363 million, which of course Todd didn't have. The judge eventually granted $6.3 million, which of course Todd didn't have. Kayla and the other victims' families were paid out a fraction of what they actually deserve. Todd, now locked up for life, wasn't done being a psychopath. Todd was broke. All his victims' families took what money he had left. Man couldn't even buy a pack of ramen noodles and a bag of chips to make a prison burrito. He thinks to himself, how can one make money in prison without selling their booty cheeks? Oh, I'll sell t-shirts. He was initially housed at Spartanburg County Detention Center, then moved into general population. For years, he stays relatively quiet on the public radar. Then, last year, 2025, Fox Carolina files open records requests and uncovers messages Todd sent and received on his prison-issued tablet. Why in the hell does a serial killer have a prison-issued tablet? When they find those messages, they realize he's actively plotting to monetize his crimes by selling a TKSK t-shirt line. That stands for Todd Kohlhepp Serial Killer. He wants to sell autographed memorabilia, drawings, and even copies of autopsy reports. Messages include lines from him like, well, get busy making the TKSK t-shirt line as I have buyers interested. He says somebody's gonna do it for me with an embroidery machine. He talks about book and documentary pitches to boost merchandise sales, always adding, for legal purposes, of course, we can't profit from the crimes and we would never break the law. The goal is to generate cash on his account to fund his transfer out of state. Did he mean escaping? I'm not sure. One message mentions price gouging concerns for guards on a return trip. A viewer later turns over autographed documents with Todd's signature and thumbprint that he sent out with the intention of selling. Relatives of victims call it sickening because, it is. South Carolina law prohibits profiting from crime, so Department of Corrections investigates. His privileges are immediately taken away. In June 2025, he's moved into a more secure facility. Then, on October 28, 2025, after the full exposure of his messages, he's placed in supermax confinement indefinitely. This means 23-hour lockdown, 1 hour out per day under constant camera watch, no visitors, no phone, no tablets. Even in Supermax, Todd kept trying to be the main character. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Todd Kohlhepp, a registered sex offender who somehow got a real estate license, a pilot's license, and nearly 100 acres of private property to do whatever the hell he wanted with. The system flagged this dude as dangerous before he was even a teenager and then just kept handing him stuff, a degree, a license, a fucking airplane. Good job, everybody. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Crime is Fun. I'm your host, former cop, current guy who talks about criminals on the internet, and I will catch you on the next one. Stay safe out there. Don't get in any stranger shipping containers. And remember, crime is fun to listen to, not so fun when it's happening to you. Don't nut out.